Welcome, everyone. This is the first session of the July 2023 IBIS Prep Florida Bar Crash Course. This is my 5th time doing the course, and I'm excited because we have a lot of really great people and great energy here. We just did a Florida Contracts Jeopardy game before the recording started, and I was pretty impressed. I thought overall, seems like we know a little bit about contracts. So the way I'm going to start is by sharing my screen with everyone so I can go through the materials drive and show everyone how to prepare for this test. So everyone in here who's in this course should have access to this folder, which is the Florida complete course. So it's going to be the lecture series, the Florida study materials, previous crash courses, and then this particular course. If you're doing Florida and MBE, you have this complete drive. If you're just doing Florida, you have the Florida drive, but you should have these main folders. If you look through the study materials, these are your own materials that you could go through at your leisure if you need to do extra work or whatever it may be. But everyone who's in my course can pretty much focus on a week by week basis on this actual folder for the crash course as we're developing it. So you can see we have the calendar, and it's going to outline how this course is going to develop. We go from 7 to 8 Monday, Wednesday, and then we go 11 to 1 on Saturdays. 7 to 8, and today I let the course know we're going to go about 15 minutes over. We're always going to go a few minutes extra because I'd rather be diligent than be like fun. This is a zero fun, sir, administration. So, I'm going to be diligent in going through the material, but we're going to go from 7 to 8, and it's going to be substantive during the week. And then the workshop is going to review what we were learning, but in a more in a way that replicates how it's tested, right? So on Saturdays for this week, we're going to go over actual essays, and I'm going to show you how to write an essay from first word to the last word. I'm going to show you how to issue spot multiple essays, and I'm going to just go over these things, and we're going to work as a team to really succeed on Saturdays. Mondays and Wednesdays are going to be more lecture vibes, but just know that this is an open forum. Stop me at any time, chat in the box, whatever it is to be interactive. But that's just kind of the format. So you can see we do contracts and torts in the first 2 weeks. Then we do con law. This is a detailed week because it's Florida and federal and has components of criminal law. Then we do property, which is a monster in its own. And then we start doing the multiple choice sections, and we got to give a lot of time on multiple choice because that's half of the Florida test. So we're going to leave no stone unturned and really have a thorough review of every subject. So you can kind of follow along with the calendar to figure out what's going to be texted next, or what's going to be, what are we going to review next. The other things in the crash course involve your weekly assignments. And I just want to do it 1 week at a time. We're going to start with the first week, right? Remember, if you're taking my complete course and you're doing Florida and MBE, you're going to have 2 weekly assignments folders. And it's not going to be easy because the passage rates have been so brutal for these exams that I can't afford to underprepare my students. So we're going to have assignments, and at the same time, you'll see that you have accountability folders, right? Everyone who signed up for the course, you should see your name here. And for instance, I know Gabby's at her graduation right now, and Carolina said she couldn't make it today, and Isidore, I think, is in Spain. But, everyone should see that their folder's there, and if it's not, just let us know. We'll give you a folder and give you access to it. But these accountability folders are where I would like you to turn in your assignments. Again, I'm not your person who's really going to call you up and tell you need to turn in your assignments, but at some point I am. If I see your assignment, your accountability folder is empty, we're going to reach out to you and say, what's going on, and just make sure that you're doing the things that you should be doing. So we can look at week 1. What are the assignments for here? One is going to be reviewing the PowerPoints, which I'll go over, the outlines and the lectures in the drive. Complete and submit the Florida Contracts questionnaire. And we'll go over this questionnaire next class, 100%. We'll actually probably just do it together. But these questionnaires are what has separated me from all the other companies. For every single subject, I've created this is a 30 question questionnaire. They're usually 25, 30 questions, which are questions that you should be able to answer cold. And if you can answer them cold for every single subject, then you could really be confident that on the test, you'll know how to articulate the material, because that's one of the hardest things. Sure, you might know a lot about contracts, but how good are you at writing about contracts and writing about it in a manner that's going to get you points? So the number one thing is, if you come to me and you pay my top dollar rate a week before the test and say, Andrew, I want to do a 1 hour session with you, I'm just pulling out these questionnaires and we're just drill sergeanting them. So if you want to save yourself, that fee, then you really want to focus on doing these on your own. That's like the most important thing for me when it comes to essays is, are my students memorizing these questionnaires? And it's pretty thorough. And we have student submissions where you could just look at what the answers are, but I encourage the process of trying to fill them out yourself, using our outlines, using any outlines that you have, using materials to fill them out and go through that learning process of, learning the material and writing it out and figuring it out. But at some point, turn it into memorization and, do that with your family, really friends, family, tutors, whoever it may be. Focus on the questionnaire. So I say to submit it because I would like for you all to fill it out on your own and submit it. 2 timed essays. I know on the calendar it says 1. So 1 is the minimum, 2 is preferable. And I want you to write them under time circumstances. I probably wouldn't write them until Thursday or Friday or Saturday or Sunday, maybe even Sunday would be ideal because we are going to do the workshop on Saturday. So that's fine. If you want to wait till Sunday, just schedule 2 hours on Sunday and write these 2 essays back to back. Do them under time circumstances. One of the most important reasons that you're in this course and you're not just watching my old videos is because I grade all your essays, right? Submit them and I'm going to go through them and grade them. And I'm going to be dead honest with them. I'm a hard grader. So you're going to see how I feel and I'm going to give you feedback about where you should get more points. The review the contracts cheat sheet is something in your assignment folder. So I guess we have cheat sheets for you. If you look in materials, Will created this cheat sheet and then I went in and, made sure that I approved and added some things. But this is a decent 2-3-page cheat sheet, 3-page cheat sheet of like pretty much things that could be tested on a Florida contracts essay. As I do the presentation today, you'll understand that contracts is an easy subject when it comes to being tested as a Florida essay subject, because there's a basic backbone structure that accounts for about 80%, right? What do we come up with it? Buy friends drinks, big drinks, body of law, formation, defenses, breach, damages, buy friends drinks, big drinks. I mean, I don't know, it's corny, but it's just literally, those 5 points. If you could just know body of law, contract formation, defenses, breach, and damages, and have an articulate discussion about them, that's 80% of a good contracts essay, right? And then, the extra stuff is right down here: non-competes, anticipatory repudiation, installment contracts, liquidated damages, pro evidence from offer, valid point, some extra things, but 80% of it is just being able to do that backbone essay and getting really strong at it. So we're going to like contracts. So on your assignment folder, you want to turn in these essays so I can grade them. You want to review the cheat sheet, review all essays and model answers in the contracts folder. And we've done something for you that I think is nice. If you go into the materials folder and just click this folder, which is a folder inside of a folder, you'll see that we have taken all the contracts essays, model answers. These are right from the Florida study guide. This is free material. You didn't pay for this. We just organized it for you. But if I were taking the Florida bar exam, I would go over every single one of these and make sure that I feel confident about all the tested rules of law and things of that nature. They just tested contracts in February, and we'll go over that essay on Sunday. But I would definitely make sure that you're looking at the model answers and feeling confident with them. One thing that I've done for everyone is I've taken a few of them, at least model essays, rules 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know why this one says 9, but I've taken a bunch of them and I've outlined them. So if you kind of click one of these, let's just click this one. This is, for instance, February 2020. And I've just teased out the rubric points, right? The rules of law that you got to know from that particular essay. And that's pretty much the approach that you should be taking. However you want to row your boat and get there, you want to be able to go through all the previous essays, tease out the rules of law, issue spot them, and just feel like I could do this, I could replicate this, I know how to get these points. It's not easy, right? It's no fun, but this folder right here is pretty much comprehensive in terms of, what do you need to know? If you can only do one thing and one thing only, make sure you know this questionnaire cold, right? By Sunday, you should have the questionnaire memorized cold. That's the thing for me. I want you to know all that material. But at the end of the day, you got to write practice essays. One of the biggest problems that students have year after year is they don't write practice essays. And then on test day, they run out of time or something happens that they weren't prepared for. And that to me is just a lack of preparation. So if you write 2 essays every week and you have 20 essays in your folder, trust me, your 21st, 22nd, and 23rd essays are going to be sharp, right? So it's not easy. This is not a fun week, but that's the plan for everyone. Now I'm going to spend some time doing what it is I am supposedly paid to do, which is teach the material. And again, this is just the first session. We're going to review everything on the second session, and then we're going to put it to work on Saturday. Am I moving too fast for anyone, or so far so good? I haven't
I
really.
just have a quick question.
Yeah.
I know we talked a little bit about before, someone talked a little bit about before comparing MBE for all these sections to the Florida rules. Is there something that you would look at specifically that shows the differences?
Yes, and I feel like you are a paid plant that I wanted to ask that specific question because we have something right here called Florida Contracts Distinctions. It's literally in the materials folder, and you can see that multi-state rule and then the Florida rule. You can see there's not that many literally contracts. It's like 5 of them. One of them is my legs. I added additional G to it because healthcare guarantees. But literally, and I'm not trying to undermine Florida in any way, but I feel like you could crush a contracts essay without knowing any distinctions. But this sheet should have you covered if you just memorize the red stuff on this sheet. So that's a good point for distinctions. And every time I'll give people a heads up about distinctions. For con law, it's 2 totally separate bodies of law. So this is a big folder. I mean, you can look in the drive itself. You don't have to just go into this folder. You can look into the drive, the MBE folder, whatever it may be, and learn everything. I mean, I even included the full contracts outline, which is literally our MBE outline, just in case, because they could test anything, it's contracts. So that's the folder. I'm going to go into the PowerPoint, and for the sake of time, I'll get to it. It's Florida Bar Part A, February 2023 exam, lesson 1, Florida contracts, May 15, 2023. This is our info. The lesson plan, Zero Fun Sir, that's from Denzel Washington in Remember the Titans. Introductions, we did that. I think this is an awesome group of people, and hopefully more people will join us. I know, like I said, we're missing 3 or 4 people, but they'll be here and we'll get after it. Study strategy, I pretty much talked about already. It's like, do the assignments, but I'll go over that a little bit. And then Florida contracts review, which is what I'm going to get to for the end of class. So just a little bit about me. This is what me, I graduated from UM Law with my grandfather and my father. They both graduated from UM Law, so we all got to join on stage together. My grandfather since passed, but his spirit lives on. I was born in Miami. I grew up in Philadelphia, so I was rooting for the Heat and the Sixers, and then the Sixers choked, so now just the Heat. I studied some stuff. And I also teach for the California bar exam, Series 766. We do the LSAT, GMAT, GRE, SAT. We do everything. I'm a small business owner, but my business is growing. And if you know anyone who has any educational needs at all, they can rock with us. We provide one-on-one tutoring for everything under the sun. We prioritize education above all else. Mindfulness. Make sure that you're not deteriorating your mind and soul at the expense of passing this test, right? It's a balance. And we'll talk about this a little bit more next week, but just know that I care about you all as humans. It's not just about stone cold memorization of material. It's also about, having people who are there for you. And I have a Telegram chat, which is it's like WhatsApp, but cooler. And you can all join that, and you can message us anytime about anything, and you know that we're here. Yeah, thank you, Amy, so much for being with us. So, just know like Amy's in that group chat, Mark's in that group chat, and we're here to help. So the study strategy, separate calendars for the MBE and the Florida Bar. They're 2 different exams. Study each day like it's your last day studying the topic. The reason I say that is because things move fast. This week is chill. You just got to learn contracts. Even if you're doing my MBE course, you just got to learn contracts. Even if you're doing my MBE and UBE and Florida course, just contracts. But week 7, it's like 3 subjects in 1 week. It's commercial paper, secure transactions, and ethics, So it starts moving really fast. So you got to realize that when you're studying a topic, you might not see that topic again so much. So you really want to study that topic hard. Don't compare yourself. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Be consistent and regimented. Focus on memorizing the material. Spend the majority of your time simulating the test and learning from the results. 2 timed essays per week, and complete all the multiple choice questions in the drive. So the big one is 2 timed essays per week. Let's make sure we do that. Florida essay approach, I'll kind of skip over this today and talk about it more tomorrow, but or on Wednesday. But just know that every essay is the same. You want to spoon feed the reader and don't make them have to read through a super long paragraph. Be like formation and then tell them what formation is. Really give them spoon-fed essays. We see that contracts is tested all the time, so it's something we definitely want to know. Like I said, how do you know if you're doing well in a contracts essay? Well, there's 5 pieces. Define the type of contract and the parties involved, right? Here we have 2 merchants. It's important to note that they're merchants. There's special rules that apply to merchants. We have a bilateral contract because there needs to be performance by both sides. And this is a contract for goods, therefore it'll be under the UCC, because contracts for goods, which are all things movable, are under the UCC, right? Compare that to the mirror image and comment. You know what I'm saying? Like at the beginning, just identify, are they merchants? Why is that important? Is it, UCC or common law? Just like the body of law, right? Then contract formation. If you learn one thing in law school, it's contract formation, right? Offer, acceptance, consideration. That's the big, I went to law school. Right? Then defenses to contract. First is statute of frauds. 2 acronyms I want everyone to know, which are on my questionnaires. My legs, contracts for marriage, contracts that cannot be completed within 1 year, contracts for land, executorships, goods over $500, and suretyship. Also, swap, which is when you can overcome the statute of frauds, which is going to be specially manufactured goods under the UCC, written confirmatory memo under the UCC, admission in court, promissory estoppel, and partial performance. If you didn't get those acronyms in your answer, don't worry. I'm just saying statute of frauds, there's a lot of points to get. And then there's tons of other defenses, and a lot of them start with I: illegality, illusory, impracticality, improbability, impossibility, incapacity. I like letter association. So I think of I's a lot when I think of defenses. Breach. A will argue that X materially breached the contract when he failed to deliver the widgets. Y will argue that it was only an immaterial breach and la-di-da-di-da. But you want to make sure you do identify the breach. At the end of the day, that's going to be the cause of action. The cause of action is breach of contract. And then damages. And you always want to talk about legal versus equitable. Legal is going to be monetary damages. We're paying you money, expectation damage, or consequential, incidental. Equitable relief is going to be specific performance, injunction, rescission, reformation, things where the court is ordering them to do something. Does everyone out there think this is not that bad? These 5 pieces of defining the contract, contract formation, defenses to contract, identifying the breach, and then having a discussion about damages. Sometimes they will literally tell you in the question, do not speak about damages. Okay, great. Don't have to speak about damages, but usually you do. And there's a lot of points to get. So that's the little timeline thing. Some essay basics. Contract is agreement between 2 or more parties in which there are adequate remedies at law. Contract can be unilateral, bilateral. Unilateral is accepted by performance, whereas bilateral requires contract formation, right? If a poster says, find me this puppy and you win $20 and I show up with the puppy, that's a unilateral contract. Give me my $20. But most contracts are, will you accept my offer? I do accept. Contracts are either UCC, which is goods, or common law, land and services. Mixed contract will apply the predominant purpose test, whichever predominates the contract, that's the one that we would mostly apply. Under the common law, the terms of the acceptance must match the terms of the offer exactly. We call that the mirror image test. Under the UCC, we use the battle of forms provision, which states that an additional term will be included as long as it does not materially affect the contract. Does anyone have any question about the battle of forms provision? Because in February 2023, that was a big piece of the contracts essay. Does everyone understand battle of forms provision? Additional term is not going to be a counteroffer. Under the common law, that's a counteroffer because we have a mirror image test. All right, and this is my favorite words to write in when I'm writing an essay, and you'll see me on Saturday doing my thing. I love this word, these words, important to note. Here's a random fact that I'm gonna try and get points for, but if not, I did my best. It is important to note that both parties are merchants because there are special rules that apply to merchants under the UCC. Can anyone tell me one rule they could think of that applies to merchants and no one else under the UCC?
The firm offer.
I love that, the firm offer rule. Or there's no need for consideration for a modification between merchants. Things like that. So those are some basics, and you can identify that all in the first paragraph. Boom, we're in UCC world, we're talking about goods. It's important to note that they're merchants. This is a bilateral contract, and a firm offer rule might apply. Okay. Later down the line under the UCC, just note that the perfect tender rule will apply, which means that you have to deliver 500 widgets. That has to be 500 widgets. If it's 499 widgets, that's not perfect tender. Where under common law, it's just going to be substantial performance. All right, so we have contract formation. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because if you don't know this by now, right? Offer, acceptance, consideration. Key terms here are bargain for exchange, meeting of the minds, mutual assent, intent to be bound by the terms, in a way that the offeree would understand, in a way that gives power of acceptance, like whatever, just power through this. Do not spend 10 minutes writing about offer, acceptance, and consideration when you could do it in 3, make this a very quick part of your essay. Offer, acceptance, consideration, we know all these things. Under the UCC, this is more of an MBE thing. You could ship non-conforming goods. So if you say, hey, I want 500 oranges, first one to ship, it's them, and then I ship you 500 apples, that's actually an acceptance and a breach. Unless I have a notice of accommodation where it says, hey, I didn't have the oranges, but if you'll take these apples, that's a counteroffer. But just know with contract formation, we're talking about offer, acceptance, consideration. So we've talked about the basics, UCC versus common law, which is going to be body of law. Then we talked about formation, which is going to be offer, acceptance, consideration. Got to jump into the main defenses. But let's just see how they wrote it in 2009. To have a contract, there must be offer, acceptance, consideration, no valid defenses. Here, the facts state that there's a signed written contract because between A and M, so it appears they're satisfied. The contract is for a term of 1 year, but because it's split into separate payments and delivery dates each month, it would most likely be considered an installment contract. So that's a little bit more at the contract basics. Is it an installment contract? Is it a requirements contract? Is it an output contract? Was there a firm offer? You just want to use these buzzwords, and we'll go over these buzzwords a little bit more tomorrow. I'm not trying to overwhelm people today. So after we go into contract formation, we go into defenses. I told you the main defense is statute of frauds. Always going to argue that, this was needed to be in writing. Take note that it was oral. But then here's some other defenses we see: inadequate consideration, incapacity, illegality, illusory, impossibility, undue influence, fraud, duress, frustration of purpose, unconscionability, misrepresentation, mistake, against public policy, right? I'll show you all on Saturday how to get a lot of points by knowing all of these defenses to contract formation, right? Okay, so breach. When determining a breach, it can be either material or minor. To determine if it is material or minor, you look to see if the non-breaching party received the benefit of the bargain. To determine that, you look to see how much benefit has been given, the likelihood the other party will perform, the cost of the other party having to perform. If there has been a material breach of the contract that the non-breaching party does not have to perform their portion of the contract and to recover damages they incur in order to mitigate or cover for the breaching party's breach. Okay, so this was like a complex way of speaking about a breach, but just know you have to identify the breach. You can't just go into the contract and say, la, 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 offer, acceptance, consideration, defenses. At some point, you got to talk about the claim of action. And the cause of action is going to be a breach, material or minor. And when we're writing about essays, always argue both points. You want to be X will argue this, Y will argue that. On balance, the court will likely find. That's another great phrase of art I use, legal art. On balance, the court will likely find. We want to give IRACs, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. And in the analysis, we want to argue both sides. And when we give our conclusion, we want to give weak conclusions. You know, you don't want to say, therefore, there was no contract, and then you can't write anymore. You want to be, therefore, the court will likely find that there was a valid enforceable contract between the parties. Now let me try to get a few more points. All right, so damages, I talked about, there's two types of damages. And if you learn one thing today, just make sure you can explain to your friend back home, the difference between legal and equitable relief, right? Can someone out there actually explain to me the difference between legal and equitable relief so that I feel confident? Anyone? What's the difference between legal and equitable relief when it comes to contract law? How would you articulate that?
Legal relief will be something like monetary. So it'll be the widgets that weren't either delivered, the monetary amount, the deposit that was paid. While equitable relief will be something such as a court order, an injunction, if there's like a breach in like an IP contract, something of that nature. Something is court order and it's to either stop or make somebody do something, and well, legal relief will be something of value.
Could you have legal relief when it's a performer? Could we force Michael Jackson to perform?
No.
No, sir.
No, right? So in that case, it would have to be legal relief. We wouldn't be able to have equitable relief. I'm sorry if I misstated that. But we couldn't force a person to perform because that's almost like indentured servitude. So usually in contract law, money will be enough. And typically, we're going to want to put the non-breaching party in the position they would have been if the contract had been completed. That's known as expectation damages. Consequential damages are foreseeable in light of a breach. Incidental damages are damages that are, in order to recover for the breach, like you had to, rent a car or something. Restitution, we're talking about ill-gotten gains. We're going to take money from one side and bring it to the other. These are different forms of legal relief. And then equitable relief, the big one that we talk about on the exam, is going to be specific performance. And specific performance, especially for art or land, like we're going to compel this person to actually perform. That's one of the biggest types of equitable relief. And then rescission, ripping up the contract, or reformation, reforming the contract in order to fulfill the needs of the party. So we see here legal relief, expectation, consequential, incidental, reliance, restitution, lost profits, lost wages. And then equitable relief includes specific performance, injunctive relief, rescission, reformation, quasi-contract, and promissory estoppel. Quasi-contract is a fictitious contract. It means there's no contract, but in order to prevent unjust enrichment or injustice, the court is going to more or less impose a contract. And then the last thing that we can see is these common issues tested on Florida bar contracts. And we talked about these in the Jeopardy game. Non-competes. They must be reasonable in time, geographic scope, and subject matter. Time, geographic scope, and subject matter. So it can't be too long, can't be too far, and it can't be too off point. Installment contracts, I'm going to deliver 100 bushels every week. Just look out for this. You deliver 100 bushels week 1, 100 bushels week 2, 90 bushels week 3. Ooh, is that a breach? Probably not a material breach, because most likely you can just deliver 110 bushels the following week. That's called an opportunity to cure. That's a big buzzword in installment contracts. Anticipatory repudiation, when one party unequivocally and clearly demonstrates an intent not to honor the contract. And when that's the case, then you're entitled to some relief, whether it's immediately suing the contract as breached or waiting until the actual repudiation occurs. And, you're going to have some requests for further assurances or something of that nature. And we'll look into these points. As I'm winding down class, if I'm moving a little fast, don't be overwhelmed. Today was not like learn everything about contracts. Today was, oh yeah, let's get the wheels turning. Parole evidence, we're not going to allow extrinsic evidence to contradict a fully integrated document unless it's one of the various exceptions, like to clarify an ambiguous term or to show a condition to contract or defect information. And then finally, liquidated damages, like we talked about, if they're too speculative. We see this a lot in construction law. If you don't have the plumbing done by January 1st, it's going to result in this amount of monetary cost. And we're going to contemplate that ahead of time because it would be too speculative to measure in the event of a breach. Liquidated damages must be reasonable. If there's a clause that says, 100 units for $5 and any breach is $250 per unit, well, that's 50% of the contract price. Usually liquidated damages should be limited to 20% in Florida, so that would probably be unreasonable. And then here we go, the assignments. Review all the materials in the week 1 folder, submit the completed Florida questionnaires, I can't stress that enough, and try to memorize them by Sunday. And then I really encourage everyone to submit 2 time practice essays, and just know that we have one more on Wednesday of substantive review of this material. And then on Saturday, we're going to do a workshop where if you didn't get a chance to do your homework or whatever, I'm going to make everyone feel really confident in approaching a contracts essay. So I know this was a lot of material. I know we went 16 minutes over, but I want to take the time to get to know everyone. I want to play some Jeopardy, and I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording.